A new loot run system, a new content book, and most importantly, mythic prices crashing to whole new lows. We interviewed the owner Salted to hear his take on the latest update. First off, will we see new things added to loot runs?
That's actually what I've been working a little bit recently. We're gonna add new loot run camps. We already said that, but we plan to do a little more than that eventually.
Could we see low-level loot runs?
I did a lot of low-level loot run for testing, and I actually quite enjoyed that. And maybe one day we would. I think the progression is just kind of too fast in the early game, so I'm very unsure if we're gonna ever release a loot run for under level like 70.
Will new loot run camps be added between bigger updates?
Some people in the CT are already working on new loot runs camp, so we could release them faster, and I don't really see a reason to just wait for now. So it'd be nice to at least add the three or so more loot runs. No promise, but you could expect loot runs in smaller update, maybe during a hotfix or something like that.
Could we see more rewards added, and will there be a reason to visit lower level camps?
We need to add more rewards to loot runs in general. There will come a time where we have enough loot run camp. Almost all of the mythics are available every week. You just have to select your own camp that has a mythic you want to have.
What do you think about the update?
I think it's a great update. I mean, I designed it, so I'm super biased. I'm not gonna say it's shit, obviously. I think the overall sentiment is quite positive, right? Unless I'm wrong.
What would you say to those who are worried about the crash in mythic prices?
Here's the truth. The average mythic generation per in-game players login every day is actually lower than before. I know mythics prices have gone down, but it's not because we're flooding the market with it. It's because there's a lot more people loot running. People think mythics are going down, and so they price their mythics lower, and it kind of, people think mythics are worth less, so they are worth less. Lastly, because the mythics are selected every week, it's a smaller pool. It does affect the prices of a few mythics more. And I think over time it will go back up.
Could shiny mythics get their own cosmetic models?
It's just so much more work. I mean, I think it'd be nice too, but it's like 40 mythics.
How did you expect the community to react to the update?
I don't try to think what people will think too hard, because it's always slightly different. The way it works, like we work on something, then we kind of get the CT to do big tests and give us feedback and everything, and so we can get a glimpse of what the community is going to think about. And people kind of liked it. There's some people that were really into loot running before. They said they found it a little weird, but eventually with time they got to like it more and more. So this is what I expected, and I think this is kind of what happened in the community too. People kind of liked it.
Were you expecting mythic prices to crash as they did?
I kind of expected more people to loot run because it's more fun, it's more accessible and all that stuff, as I said earlier. And so I did expect mythics to go down in prices just because of the fact more people are loot running. And so shiny mythics were kind of a way to make sure there's still that big rare reward.
Will loot bonus and loot quality still have a place in the new loot run system?
It will never be as effective as it used to be. The first step is to make the yellow beacon actually good. The yellow beacon were meant to allow the loot quality loot bonus people to still have something they could do, but it's not as effective as just going for a 3-hour-long run.
So should players with loot sets sell their stuff?
If you have a discoverer, I would perhaps wait.
Do you feel the new loot runs had made mythics more accessible to the average player?
It's so much more easier to get into loot runs now than it used to be. You had to not only like get a proper build that costs a lot of money, but then also do this weird meta game where you have to find old worlds that other people didn't claim. Like this was hell. And I think it's a lot more clear now, so a lot more people are loot running.
Could loot runs reward more emeralds?
People say they always want more Ellie. Ellie is like the best reward. And so I'm scared that if we make some content that's really just good at Ellie, that this is all that people are going to do. So what I prefer to do is make everything give okay amount of emerald. I think they'll never be better than raids. And I think it makes sense, right? Because raids cost runes, and also you need a team, and they're a little more complex in that way.
Will raids become less relevant now with loot runs giving great rewards?
Well, as I said, I do want raids to be better for elite generation at least, but everything kind of is valuable in its own way. I want some stuff to to do its own thing well and then something else to do its other thing well. I don't plan to ever let raids become irrelevant.
What role do mythics have? Are they just a higher tier, or are they supposed to be super rare and hard to get?
This changed over the years. When we did Gavel, I remember doing the mythics and thinking, alright, we're gonna make this incredibly rare item and people are never gonna find it. Now I would prefer mythics to not be as rare and exclusive as they used to be, and I would prefer if something more unimportant, I guess, like cosmetic wise, like the shiny mythics became that ultimate goal.
Some players have been upset with how mythics are no longer as special to collect. What would you say to them?
I think mythics will be less rare than before, that's for sure, and I don't see that really as an issue. So if people used to put their own value as a player on their mythic, then I guess they're gonna be a little disappointed. There's other things they can do, like shiny maybe are not a great solution, but perhaps in the future we'll add other type of great rare rewards. But I doubt we're gonna add another tier after mythics. Probably gonna be more cosmetic or maybe something else that doesn't affect the balance of the game that hard.
Does the old way of loot running still have a place with the new system?
I don't think it really has a place anymore. This is why we made the Lootrun system, right? Because we knew this kind of thing couldn't work with client-side loot chests, and so I expected to have no place, except maybe, you know, if you log out for like a week and then you come back and all the chests are really filled, maybe there's some value into doing an old school loot run. But if you're a daily player, then I don't think it really makes sense to do that.
Will mob grinding still be a reliable way of obtaining mythics?
Well, I wouldn't mind if they turned out to be about equal, though the issue is that it's never really like that. Like, even if something is like 100% good and then something else is 90% good, people are gonna see a much bigger gap between these two methods. They're gonna see the 101 as like 10 times better. So I think from the player's point of view, loot run will be the best method, but I wouldn't mind if mob grinding is still good enough. But I would much rather people loot run than grind, for mythics at least.
Some have said the content book ruins exploration. What's your opinion?
If it ruins the game for you, you could just not use it. But I think for most people, it expands the game. It allows them to know that there's more than quests in the game. There's caves, there's boss altars, especially where like really obscure. A lot of people never knew they existed, except the more veteran players. I think overall it helps, though I do admit it's true. For some people, it might make it more lame.
What was the reason for changing the quest book?
The idea was definitely to give a little more highlights to other things than quests. Some people are not that much of a fan of quests. They just want to play around and explore random stuff with their friend, and maybe caves is more interesting for them. So it does downgrade, I guess, how quests are seen. They're slightly less important. Something I see very often with new players that they kind of don't know what to do. They do a few quests, and they end up not leveling up, and then they're in town. They're like, well, what do I do now? I got no quest to do. They don't realize they can explore the game, and so this gives them more ideas, like, oh, how about you go explore this random area you never saw, or a cave or whatever. So it does help with that.
Will there be a quest to introduce loot runs?
I haven't thought of that. Maybe, but it's not really a priority. It's on right now. All the quest work that's being done is basically focused on Fruma, so really don't expect that anytime soon.
And that was it for this interview. Stay tuned for more exclusive takes from Salted about the Fruma update and future updates.